Hello, and a very warm welcome to today's session. I'm Rashmi, working as Assistant Professor, Department of Physics. In this session, I'm starting a new chapter, which is Unit number 7, Electromagnetism. This is a part of your 4th semester Physics, Paper 4, Electricity and Electromagnetic Theory. This is an introductory session, so let us first understand what is electromagnetism. Electromagnetism, as the name itself suggests, it has two parts. One is electro, which is referring to electricity, and the second part is magnetism. Obviously, it is referring to magnetic property. We humans are familiar with electricity and magnetism from centuries, and we have considered them to be two independent branches. ನಮಗೆ ಸಾವಿರಾರು ವರ್ಷಗಳಿಂದ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಸಿಟಿ ಬಗ್ಗೆನೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ, ಮ್ಯಾಗ್ನೆಟಿಸಮ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆನೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ. ಆದರೆ ಅದೆರಡು ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಅಂದ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ವಿ. ವೆನ್ ವಿ ಟಾಕ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಸಿಟಿ, ವಿ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಟಾಕಿಂಗ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ electric charges, and of course we'll talk about electric currents. And when it comes to magnetism, we'll talk about magnets and also magnetic property of the material. And we treat them to be completely separate branches. And this continued till 1820. In the year 1820, a crucial discovery was made by a Danish physicist Ørsted. ಸೊ 1820ವರೆಗೂ ನಾವು ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಸಿಟಿ ಮತ್ತು ಮ್ಯಾಗ್ನೆಟಿಸಮ್ನ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಬ್ರಾಂಚಸ್ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಆದರೆ 1820ಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಬ್ಬ ಡ್ಯಾನಿಷ್ ಫಿಸಿಸಿಸ್ಟ್ ಅರ್ಸ್ಟೆಡ್ ಅವರು ತಮ್ಮ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆರಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಮೂಲಕ ಏನನ್ನೋ ಕಂಡುಹಿಡಿತಾರೆ. ಅದು ಏನು ಅಂತ ನೋಡೋಣ. ಸೊ ಹಿ ವಾಸ್ ಗಿವಿಂಗ್ ಅ ಡೆಮೋ ಲೆಕ್ಚರ್ and accidentally observed a magnetic needle which was placed near to a current carrying conductor used to respond to the current. So he observed that there was a current carrying conductor, say this is the current carrying conductor, and there was a magnetic needle which was very close to the current carrying wire. He observed that whenever the current was flowing in the conductor, the magnetic needle used to show some deflection, and when the current was switched off, the needle used to come back to its original position, which is the north-south direction, as any other needle does, right? He also tried to reverse the direction of the current, and what he observed was even the deflection used to reverse its direction. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ನಡೀತಾ ಇದೆ, ಒಂದು ಕಂಡಕ್ಟರ್ ಇದೆ, ಆ ಕಂಡಕ್ಟರಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವಾಗ ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಪಾಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೋ ಅದರ ಹತ್ರ ಇರುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ಮ್ಯಾಗ್ನೆಟಿಕ್ ನೀಡಲ್ಲು ಡಿಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಯಾವಾಗ ಈ ಕರೆಂಟು ಸ್ವಿಚ್ ಆಫ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೋ ಆವಾಗ ಅದು ನಾರ್ತ್ ಸೌತ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಷನ್ಗೆ ಬಂದು ನಿಲ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ವಾಟ್ ಡಸ್ ದಟ್ ಮೀನ್? ದಿಸ್ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಮ್ಯಾಗ್ನೆಟಿಕ್ ನೀಡಲ್ is responding to the current. So that is what Ørsted observed. And he concluded that the current in the wire is producing a magnetic field. ಏನಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂದರೆ, obviously when will the magnetic needle show a deflection? There has to be a magnetic field. And when is this needle showing deflection? Whenever there is current, the needle is showing deflection. So that means this particular current is creating a magnetic field around it, and this needle is actually responding to that external field and it is showing the deflection. So he concluded that a current carrying conductor produces magnetic field. And this discovery is so very important. It actually linked magnetism with electricity. This experiment may sound very simple, but the impact of this discovery is very, very huge. It is this discovery which actually made the two separate branches, electricity and magnetism, come together, and today we call that branch as electromagnetism. Obviously, this is the most important discovery ever made. His discovery laid the foundation for what we today call as field theory. ಇವತ್ತು ನಾವು field theory ಅಂತ ಏನು ಕರಿತೀವೋ ಅದರ ಫೌಂಡೇಶನ್ ಬಂದಿದ್ದೆ ಅರ್ಸ್ಟರ್ ಅವರ ಡಿಸ್ಕವರಿಯಿಂದ. And this particular discovery led to a tremendous activities in the field in 19th century. Many scientists started working on this theory. The major contributions are from Ampere, Henry, Faraday, Maxwell, and so on. But the major credit goes to James Clerk Maxwell for his brilliant work where he formulated unified field theory. This theory connects electricity and magnetism. And one of the conclusion of field theory is light is an electromagnetic radiation. ಅಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೂ ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಲೈಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಸಪರೇಟ್ ಬ್ರಾಂಚ್ ಆಗಿ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ವಿ. ಸೊ ವಿ ಯೂಸ್ ಟು ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ light has a separate branch which we used to study in optics. Now, because of this field theory, even this optics became a branch of electromagnetism. In your syllabus, we have an entire chapter completely dedicated to Maxwell field theory, where you will be actually calculating all the four Maxwell equations, and you will also be proving light is an electromagnetic wave. So in this current chapter, we are not going to discuss about the Maxwell field theory. We are only dealing with the relation between electricity and magnetism. Okay. So let us move on to electromagnetism. In this current chapter, we will only focus more on effect of moving charges, especially the magnetic effect of the moving charges, and how an external magnetic field affects the motion of a charged particle. So let us look at some key points of electromagnetism. You all know if there is a charge, it will produce electric field around it. ಒಂದು ಚಾರ್ಜ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಆ ಚಾರ್ಜ್ ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ತನ್ನ ಸುತ್ತಲೂ ಒಂದು ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ನ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ you know it because you have studied electrostatics. So in this particular case, when the charges are at rest, we say it is electrostatics, and you should be knowing Coulomb's law. And also you would have used Gauss law. So either using Coulomb's law or Gauss law, you would have found out what is that particular electric field that is generated, and you will also calculate what is the electric force that is acting on a particular charge. If this charge starts moving, what will happen then? ಇದೇ ಒಂದು ಚಾರ್ಜ್ ಈಗ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೋಣ. ಸೊ ನಾವು ದ ಚಾರ್ಜ್ ಇಸ್ ಮೂವಿಂಗ್ ವಿತ್ ಅ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ವೆಲಾಸಿಟಿ v. So velocity is a constant in this particular case. Now, since the body is charged, it will produce an electric field, but along with that electric field, it is also going to produce a magnetic field. So this is very, very important. A charge which is moving with a constant velocity, or a charge which is under uniform motion, produces electric field along with magnetic field. So in this entire chapter, we will be focusing more on this particular effect. Now, what about if the charge is not moving with a constant velocity? What if it accelerates? So the third case is if the charge accelerates. Now velocity is not constant, the charge is accelerating. In this particular case, because it is a charge, it has to produce an electric field. Now it is moving. Moving charge produces magnetic field. That is what oyster experiment was all about. So oyster experiment ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿದ್ವಿ ಒಂದು ಮೂವಿಂಗ್ ಚಾರ್ಜ್ ಇದ್ರೆ what is a charge? What is a moving charge? Moving charge is nothing but current, right? Current is nothing but flow of charges. So if I state this second statement, if I restate it, I can say uh, current produces magnetic field, right? So current is actually producing magnetic field, or a moving charge produces magnetic field, right? So in the third case, there is motion, there is a charge, so there has to be electric field, there has to be magnetic field. But since the charge is accelerating, it also emit out electromagnetic radiation. So the third important point is, if the charge accelerate along with the electric field and magnetic field, it is also emitting electromagnetic radiation. ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಚಾರ್ಜ್ ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಅದು ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ನ ಮಾತ್ರ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಅದೇ ಅದು ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ವೆಲಾಸಿಟಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ಜೊತೆ ಮ್ಯಾಗ್ನೆಟಿಕ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ನ ಕೂಡ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಅದನ್ನೇ ನಾವು ಆಯಿಸ್ಟರ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆರಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಈಗ ಒಂದು ಚಾರ್ಜ್ ಆಕ್ಸಿಲರೇಟ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ಅವಾಗ ಅದು ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ಜೊತೆ ಮ್ಯಾಗ್ನೆಟಿಕ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ನ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಅಲ್ದಿರ ಒಂದು ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರೋಮ್ಯಾಗ್ನೆಟಿಕ್ ರೇಡಿಯೇಷನ್ ನ ಎಮಿಟ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. What is electromagnetic radiation? All the 7 radiation, starting from gamma ray, X-ray, UV ray, visible, infrared, microwave, and the radio wave. So the electromagnetic radiation can be any one of this radiation. So an accelerated charge can emit one of this radiation. Have you heard about accelerated charge emitting electromagnetic radiation? Just think about it. ಎಲ್ಲಾದ್ರೂ ಕೇಳಿದಿರಾ ಒಂದು accelerated charge electromagnetic radiation emit ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ? You have. Recall your atomic models. In Bohr's atomic theory or in Rutherford theory, you would have heard a charge. In this particular case, charge is nothing but an electron which is revolving around the nucleus will emit out electromagnetic radiation, right? So this is one of the failures of Rutherford atom model. The electron is a charged particle. Now if it is moving in a circular path, we know that motion in circular path is always accelerated motion. Therefore it has to emit out radiation, which is nothing but electromagnetic radiation. And because of this, Rutherford could not explain the stability of the atom. Then comes the Bohr's theory, where he suggests the energy of electron in any orbit is a constant, and he calls it as stationary orbits. And he'll say whenever the electron jumps from higher orbit to lower orbit, the extra energy is emitted out as electromagnetic radiation. ಇದನ್ನ ನೀವು ಕೇಳಿರ್ತೀರ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಸೊ ರದರ್ಫೋರ್ಡ್ ಆಟಮ್ ಮಾಡೆಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಚಾರ್ಜ್ ಬಾಡಿ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ರೇಡಿಯೇಷನ್ ನ ಹೊರಗೆ ಬೀಳುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನ ಅವರು ಹೇಳೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಈ ಆಟಮ್ದು ಸ್ಟೆಬಿಲಿಟಿನ ಅವರು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ರದರ್ಫೋರ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡೆಲ್ ಫೇಲ್ ಆಗಿತ್ತು. ಬೋರ್ಸ್ ಥಿಯರಿಲಿ ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಆರ್ಬಿಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಂತ ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದೇ ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಲಾಸ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಬಟ್ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಾನ್ ಹೈಯರ್ ಆರ್ಬಿಟ್ ಇಂದ ಲೋವರ್ ಆರ್ಬಿಟ್ಗೆ ಜಂಪ್ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು. ಈ ಒಂದು ಕೇಸಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರೋಮ್ಯಾಗ್ನೆಟಿಕ್ ರೇಡಿಯೇಷನ್ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ವಿಚ್ ವರ್ ದ ರೇಡಿಯೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಹೈಡ್ರೋಜನ್ ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ರಾ ಅಲ್ಲಿ Lyman series, Balmer series, Paschen series. Again, Lyman series was which radiation? UV radiation. Balmer was the visible one, and the rest of them were in the infrared radiation. So this is the best example that you can quote for a accelerated charge emitting out electromagnetic radiation. Of course, all these things will come under modern physics, which you will learn in your 5th semester. So in this particular semester, we are not talking about any electromagnetic radiation emitting out. Of course, in Maxwell field theory chapter, you will be doing only mathematical part. Otherwise, we are not talking about any electromagnetic spectrum. Okay. This whole chapter will be discussing only about the second point. A charge which is under uniform motion is going to produce magnetic field as well as electric field. So this is the key points that you need to remember in electromagnetism. Okay, before going any further, let us first try to recall the concepts of electrostatics and magnetism, which you have already learned in your previous years, and then we can go to the concept of this particular chapter. So let us start from electric charges. What do we know about electric charges? Obviously, when I say electric charge, it comes in two varieties, I can say. One is plus charge, another one is the minus charge. So one is the positive charge, the other one is the negative charge. Similarly, a magnet has two poles. One is called as the north pole, the other one is called as the south pole. In case of charge, I can have isolated charges. Either I can have only positive charge or I can have only negative charge. So I can have isolated charge. Therefore, in electrostatics, I can say monopoles exist. I can have isolated charges, or I can say isolated charge is nothing but a monopole. Monopole exists in case of electrostatics. What about a magnet? If I try to break a magnet into two halves, again these two pieces will acquire a polarity and it is going to become two smaller magnets. So in spite of breaking it into tiny pieces, I will still end up getting two poles. So I usually say, what do we usually say? Magnets do not have monopole, or monopole does not exist. So in case of magnets, monopole does not exist. Every magnet is always a dipole. It will have two poles. Which are those poles? North pole and the south pole. Okay, what else? We also know that if there is a charge, that is going to produce an electric field, right? If there is a charge, it is going to produce an electric field around it. Similarly, if there is a magnet, it is going to produce a magnetic field. And how do I represent the field? For that, I write field lines or lines of force. If it is a positive charge, the field line diverges from the positive charge. If there is a negative charge, the field line converges at the negative charge, right? Similarly, any magnet produces a magnetic field. And how will be the magnetic field? It diverges from the north pole of the magnet and it converges at the south pole of the magnet. So the direction of the magnetic field will be from the north pole and it will be towards the south pole. Similarly, in case of charges, the direction of the electric field will be from the positive charge and it will be towards the negative charge. And we represent electric field by the letter E and it is a vector quantity. Similarly, the magnetic field is represented by B and it is also a vector quantity. Now, how do we define electric field? What is an electric field? How do we know electric field at a particular point? Say there is a charge over here, and at some particular distance, say R, if I want to know what is the electric field at this particular point, how will I calculate it? For that, I should first bring the concept of electric forces. Using the concept of electric forces, we define electric field. So in order to talk about electric forces, we use Coulomb's law, right? So what does Coulomb's law says? That the force between any two charges is directly proportional to the magnitude of the charges, and it is inversely proportional to the square of distance between them. And then we'll change this proportionality sign, and we'll write the constant of proportionality 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q1 q2 by r square. So this is the Coulomb's law. And later we'll say, out of these two charges, if one of the charge was already present, say there is a charge q and it is producing an electric field in this particular region, and if I try to bring a small test charge to see what is the field strength, let me call this test charge as small q, and this charge has capital Q, because this is the source charge. This is the source of electric field that is produced in this particular region. So we call this as the test charge, source charge. Okay. So I can replace Q1, Q2 by capital Q and small q. And now in place of this capital Q, I can write it as E, where E is nothing but the electric field. Now, by definition, electric field is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q by r square, right? Electric field is given by this particular equation. And if I substitute this value here, I'll get F is equal to, or what is E now? Electric field is equal to F by Q. So this is how we define electric field. It is the force per unit charge, or it is the force acting per unit charge, and the SI unit comes out to be Newton per Coulomb, right? So this is how we define electric field. So in order to define a field, I should know what are the forces that is acting between two charges. Now coming to magnets, magnets have two poles, and in case of magnets, we'll talk about pole strength. If you had two charges, how would you denote the strength of the charge? For that, the charge, if it is positive charge, you'll write it as plus q, and for the negative charge, you'll write it as minus q. Similarly, in case of magnets, we talk about pole strength. If it is north pole, the pole strength is assigned as plus m, and for the south pole, the pole strength is represented by minus m. And we know every magnet produces magnetic field around it. But in this particular chapter, we are not interested in magnetic fields that are generated by magnets. We are more interested in magnetic field that is produced by a moving charge, or magnetic field that is produced by currents. Okay, if there is a wire and if it is carrying a current I, then what is the magnetic field that is produced by this particular current at some point? So we are more interested in finding the magnetic field due to these two cases. Okay. In your PUC, you would have learned how to find the magnetic field at a point by a current carrying conductor. ಏನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ PUC ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾರಿಂಗ್ ವೈರ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಅದರಿಂದ ಬರುವಂತ ಮ್ಯಾಗ್ನೆಟಿಕ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಅಟ್ ಅ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ರಿ. How were you doing that? Which was the law that you were using? You were using Biot-Savart's law, right? So what is Biot-Savart's law? For that, I need to first take a wire and I need to say the current that is carried by the wire is I, and if there is a point P which is at a distance say R from the wire, then at this point P we used to find out what is the magnetic field strength. And what does Biot-Savart's law state? The magnetic field at a point is directly proportional to the current, and it is also directly proportional to the current element. So if I say the small part is the current element and the length of the current element is dl, it is directly proportional to dl, and it is directly proportional to sine theta, where theta is the angle made by the line and the current element, and it is inversely proportional to the square of the distance, so r square. Now to remove the proportionality constant, we used to put a constant here which is mu naught by 4 pi I dl sine theta by r square. So this was your Biot-Savart's law. Biot-Savart's law ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನೀವು ಒಂದು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮ್ಯಾಗ್ನೆಟಿಕ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ನ ಕಂಡುಹಿಡಿತಾ ಇದ್ರಿ. As an application, you would have learned the magnetic field due to an infinite current carrying conductor, and you would all solve for magnetic field inside a solenoid, right? So these two you would have read in your PUC itself. Biot-Savart's law is not a part of this syllabus because we will assume that you know Biot-Savart's law already and you are supposed to remember the final answer for these two cases. Magnetic field due to a conductor and magnetic field due to a solenoid. Those two final answers for B we will be using in a further study in this particular chapter. So please go through that and find out what is B for a conductor and a solenoid. Okay. So instead of Biot-Savart's law, for the same case, if there is a wire and if it is producing a magnetic field, how to find out the magnetic field? For that, we will be using one more law, which is called Ampere's law. So this year, you will be studying Ampere's law and its application. Okay. Next session, we will discuss more about magnetic forces and we will also define what is magnetic field. So that is all for today's class. These are my references. You can go through them. So see you in the next class. Thank you.